Let's unite our energies to form a chain of love that extends beyond physical borders, radiating positivity and compassion.
I would like to say that for thousands of years, for the longest period compared to anything on this planet, this wisdom, this dimension of knowing has lived on without any kind of true organization or a certain kind of leadership or any other kind of organized support. Out of sheer efficacy of what it is, it's just lived on. A time has come in the world where even truth has to be protected. When we talk about East, we are not talking about a particular geography. This must be clearly understood. We are not talking about East and West as geographical features in the world. Any number of great minds in America have said things of great reverence and admiration for the so-called Eastern wisdom. Thoreau, one of the greatest minds America produced, went out to say, "Every morning I bathe my intellect in this stupendous and cosmogonal knowledge from the East. In comparison, all our modern world and literature is puny and trivial." I think Mark Twain went out to… probably gave out the best compliment to the East when he visited India for a little over 3 months. He said, anything that can ever be done, either by man or God, has been done in this land. Any number of others, Oppenheimer, Walden, Emerson, any number of people have said many things. Why? Why is it important? Why is it important to preserve and nurture this dimension of life? The fundamental reason why it seems to be so significantly different is because it is not a product of human intellect. It is not deductions that we made out of our intellect. This dimension comes from a profound inner experience where there is no right and wrong, there is no up and down, just seeing things the way they are. And when we say dharma, we are not talking about a religion as modern translators went about interpreting dharma as Hindu dharma or whatever, another religion. Because they came from a mindset that everybody has to belong to some segment of humanity. They come from a mindset where humanity has to be divided one way or the other, because they come from the surface intelligence of human nature, which we call as intellect. Unfortunately, the modern societies, modern education systems have entirely dedicated themselves to the human intellect, completely ignoring other dimensions of intelligence which definitely exist within us. When you go by the intellect, the nature of the intellect is always to dissect and divide, because intellect is essentially discriminatory in nature. And intellect functions always with a certain identity. If you have no identity, you cannot use your intellect. So with individual identities, either of race, religion, nationality, caste, creed, gender, when you apply your intellect, it'll split the world into many pieces. So the significance of what we are referring to as the spirit of Eastern wisdom is, it does not come from human intellect. It comes from a deeper dimension of intelligence within us. When I say a deeper dimension of intelligence, a simplistic way of looking at it would be, whatever you had for lunch today, if you had a piece of bread, over the afternoon, this bread is being transformed into a human being. You definitely cannot do that with your intellect. There's an intelligence here which is capable of making a banana into a human being. You definitely cannot do that with your intellect. A dimension of intelligence which is beyond thought process. Thought, or the product of intellect, is essentially always functioning from a limited amount of data that we have gathered. Now, what we call as Eastern wisdom is not coming from a limited amount of data that we have gathered either from the books or our life experience, but simply by enhancing our ability to perceive life in ways that the five sense organs cannot function. Why I'm talking about the five sense organs is all the data that you have ever gathered, which rests in so many aspects within you, which is the food for the intellect, comes from the five sense organs. In the very nature of things, sense organs cannot perceive the entirety of anything. If you can see this part of my hand, you cannot see this part of my hand. This is the nature of sense perception. Even if you take a grain of sand, if you see one part of it, you cannot see the other face of it. Sense organs can only perceive in comparison. If there is no comparison, your senses are useless. Because there is darkness, you know what is light. Otherwise, you just would not know what is light. If light was on all the time and there was no darkness, you would not know what is light. Because there is silence, you know what is sound. If there was no silence, you would not have the idea of what is sound. So always in comparison, it is like, let's say you're 6 feet tall. Now, you walk like a tall man, you think like a tall man, you feel like a tall man, you are a tall man. You went to another society where everybody is 8 feet tall. Suddenly you walk like a short man, think like a short man, feel like a short man, and you are a short man. So what you perceive in comparison is a distortion of reality. It is not reality as it is. So whatever we perceive in comparison is useful for our survival process. But if we want to know the nature of this existence, sense organs are not sufficient instruments. What is light for you is darkness for many other creatures. You ever got into an argument with an owl? If you did, which is light, which is darkness, where would it go? It would be endless argument. Who is right, you or the owl? Oh, if you're saying both, either you belong to the diplomatic corps or you have a successful marriage. You have learned to say both, both, both for everything. You're right. Well, that is the basis of all the problems on the planet. I'm right and you're wrong. The fact of the matter is, you're perceiving it as it is necessary for your survival. The owl is perceiving it as it is necessary for his survival. If survival is all you're seeking, your five sense organs and intellect are sufficient instruments. But if you want to know the nature of the existence, if you want to know the fundamental laws or dharma which governs life, the way it happens within us and around us, then you need an inner perception or another dimension of intelligence within you. Otherwise, you will only cut the world into pieces. In the name of religions, we have cut the world into… humanity into many pieces because intellectually we have arrived at our own conclusions or deductions, which invariably is bound to divide because intellect is essentially a knife which cuts. It can only dissect. By dissection, you can know certain things. But if you really want to know someone that you love, you don't dissect them, you embrace them. By dissection, you may know the kidney, liver, heart stuff, but you will not know that being in any sense. You will lose it completely. So dissection is the way of the intellect because it is a sharp instrument. It has to cut open everything that's given to it. But the East found another way. Out of profoundness of experience, you can know life. By turning inward, you can know life. When I say turning inward, you must understand that essentially the five sense organs are always outward. You can see what's around you, but you cannot roll your eyeballs inward and scan yourself. You can hear this, but so much activity in this body, you cannot hear this. If an ant crawls upon this hand, you can feel it. So much blood flowing, you cannot feel it. Because in the very nature of things, sense organs are outward bound. The moment you dedicate yourself to your intellect, you also get enslaved to the limitations of your five senses. It is in this context, the wisdom of the East is of tremendous significance to the world because it has transcended this slavery to sense perception and learned to perceive life in a completely different way. What is this completely different way? In English language, if you say mind, it is just one word, it is supposed to say everything. In the yogic culture, there are 16 parts to the mind, 16 dimensions of human mind. Now if I go into 16, it would take too much time, so let me compress it into 4. The 4 aspects of the mind are called buddhi, ahankara, manas and chitta. Buddhi means the intellect. Today, modern world is largely run by the intellect. So with this, we can do many things on the outside. We can go on enhancing the comforts and conveniences of life. We've done very well in terms of comforts and conveniences. Never before, never ever before, another generation of humanity ever knew the kind of comforts and conveniences that we have today, but at the same time, we are whining like never before. Because as the comforts and convenience increase on the outside, as there is less to complain about what is happening around you, the emptiness of within echoes within you in a horrible way. When you're fighting for survival, when every day you are struggling to fix small things on the outside, you will not realize this. When outside is well settled, that is when you'll see how hollow life has become. The biggest question in the world, you will see in the next few decades is, what the hell are we doing here anyway? Because everything that needs to be fixed on the outside is done, now what? 7.2 billion people on the planet. But right now, gradually it's looming large. Loneliness is one of the biggest problems. Dogs are being tortured to fulfill human loneliness. Because as you dedicate yourself more and more to your intellect, you will naturally become more and more lonely because It keeps on dissecting and cutting life into various pieces for examination, and then you will see you yourself will be split up into many parts after some time, if you go by the intellect, 100%. The next dimension of the mind is referred to as ahankara. Normally people think it means ego. No, it means identity. You're identified with something. The moment you're identified with something, your intellect will work only to protect that identity, no matter what, whichever way you think. Your ideas of which nation you belong to, which race you belong to, which culture you belong to, which religion you belong to, which gender you belong to, the moment you get identified, your intellect will work only to protect that identity. So, it is a certain kind of prejudice. Well, you may say, I'm not prejudiced, I'm very broad-minded. All right, it's a broad prejudice. Because people are willing to live and die for what they're identified with. Because the nature of the intellect is, if you take away the identity, it will not know what to do. It needs a strong identity, a strong sense of who I am. If you ask, who am I? Your intellect will not function. You must know who you are. A strong sense of belief that this is what I am, that is when your intellect will function in a certain way. This is like… intellect is like a sharp knife. Ahankara or the identity is the hand that holds it. All the suffering on the planet, when was the last time that somebody stabbed you? Even though you're living in LA, I'm asking. When was the last time it happened? Never happened. Maybe when you were in school, somebody poked you with a pin at the most, or even that did not happen, they ignored you. Or what I'm saying is, how much suffering for a human being is actually coming from outside? Almost nothing. Rest is all self-help. Because this is a sharp knife given to you, unsteady hand, every day it's cutting itself. You know, we were trekking in Nepal and Tibet region, and I was in a tent. Someone was cutting an apple, and someone else, another person says, "This is a very sharp knife, be careful." It irritates me because such an obvious thing, you call it a knife only because it's sharp. If the damn thing is not sharp, why will I call it a knife? And if it's a child, yes. A full-grown man, you don't tell him it's a sharp knife. I ignored it and I was working on something. Another 2 minutes, again it is said, "It's a very sharp knife, be careful." I said, "Come on, leave him alone." He's a grown man, leave him alone. He's not handling some super instrument, a knife. He should know how to handle a knife. "No, no, Sadhguru, it's a very sharp knife." All right, I get back to my work. 2 minutes later, he cuts his hand. Okay. Now, the problem is just this, you've been given a sharp knife, unsteady hand, every day cutting yourself. You may call it stress, you may call it anxiety, you may call it fear, you may call it misery, you call it what you want. All that's happening is, your intellect is working against you. That's all it is. Unless somebody is stabbing you from outside, that's a different issue, we need to deal with that differently. Rest is all your own intelligence turning against you. You may call it 1,000 no, my mother-in-law, my boss, my neighbor, they're not stabbing you, they're only saying what they want to say. It is you who's poking yourself because an unsteady hand, that's all. But this intellect cannot function without a memory bank. So what is called as manas is a silo of memory. There are 8 dimensions of memory. Let's not go into the detail, but you know this much. There is a conscious memory. Today they're recognizing a subconscious memory. You know there is genetic memory. You may not remember how your great-great-great-grandfather looked like, but his nose is sitting on your face. 1,000,000 years ago, how your forefathers were, even today, your body remembers. You may not remember here, but your body remembers every aspect of it. Even the color of the skin it is remembering, not forgotten. So there is genetic memory, there is evolutionary memory. Like this, there's a profound dimension of memory in the body. There are 1,000,000,000,000 times more memory in your body than in your mind. So this is why this is called as manomaya kosha. This is an entire manas, not in one place. Intellect may be up here, but the manas spreads right through the system. Every cell in the body has a memory of its own, has an intelligence of its own. Now the 4th dimension of intelligence is called chitta. This is a dimension of intelligence which is unsullied by memory. If you touch this dimension, then the memory has no influence on you. Your genetic memory, your evolutionary memory, your conscious memories, unconscious memory, subconscious memory, whatever kinds of memories you have, it has no influence on you. Or in other words, past cannot recycle itself through you. See, right now, you take on this form because of a certain memory, it's a certain software. If you eat, let's say you're a man and you eat a piece of bread, this piece of bread turns into a man. You're a woman and you eat a piece of bread, the same piece of bread turns into a woman. You give it to your dog, it turns into your dog. Very intelligent bread. It is just the memory that you carry. Here there is a memory which transforms everything the way it is. So, this dimension of intelligence, which is called as chitta, which is untouched by any kind of memory, just pure intelligence, is of significance because it's beyond. It is beyond your species, it is beyond your form, it's beyond your gender, it's beyond your culture, it's beyond every kind of influence, which is essentially memory within you. Maybe unconscious, but it is memory playing out in so many ways. As long as memory is playing out, what it means is, you're… in India we say you're in a state of samsara. Samsara means a lot of people today understand as family. Samsara doesn't mean family, samsara means a cyclical life. You're in cycles of life. If you're in cycles or if you're going in circles, what does it mean? That means you're not getting anywhere. That's what it means. A cycle is nice, it gives you good exercise. This is like running on a treadmill. If you're seeking exercise, it's good. But if you want to go somewhere, it's no good. If you put your treadmill out here and keep running on it, morning becomes evening, fall becomes winter, winter becomes summer, everything will happen. Seasons will change, scenery will change, everything will happen. Only thing is you don't go anywhere. This is what samsara means. As long as you're functioning within the first 3 dimensions of intelligence, you are in a cyclical mode. It is all right to exercise yourself, but it's not good to go somewhere. So if you want to transcend the samsara nature of who you are or the cyclical nature of your existence, then you touch the dimension of intelligence which is referred to as chitta. Why the so-called Eastern wisdom is of great significance, why the dharma of the East is so significant and important is because this comes from chitta. This does not come from buddhi, this does not come from manas, this does not come from ahankara, this comes from chitta. And only that which does not come from your individual identity or individual memory, that can be truly universal. So for this we said, this is Sanatan Dharma. This does not mean Hindu religion. This is a very wrong conception. Sanatana Dharma means the ultimate law of nature. When we say nature, there is physical nature and there is an inner nature. There are two dimensions. For this, accordingly, we made two dimensions of laws. Physical nature is a changing thing. It's always in a process of change and a flux. But the inner nature is a constant process. So we made two dimensions of expression for this dharma called Shrutis and Smritis. One is always to be updated for every generation. Otherwise, two generations will keep on bickering and clashing. You have to update it. Another is eternal, it's always there. It's nobody's business to change it because it cannot be changed because the fundamentals of life has not changed. Based on this, an entire wisdom arose as to how to exist within you and how to operate around you. This happened in 1924. There was a bishop in the Orthodox Greek religion where, there's Orthodox Greek segment of Christians. They have a pope of their own in Istanbul. They believe they are the only true Christians. Others are all riffraff, according to them. So, he served this particular segment, which is very orthodox and rigid. Being in Istanbul, being on the Silk Route, all kinds of stories of Indian mysticism kept wafting across the Bosphorus. So, he has a longing to go to India and see a real yogi or a mystic. But being a man of cloth, he could not choose where to go and where not to go. After he passed 60 years of age, when he semi-retired, he got an opportunity and went to India and came to southern India. So his desire is to meet a real yogi, not a book yogi, not a studio yogi, but a real one. So somebody directed him and said, go up this hill, there in this kind of place, there will be one yogi. So he went up. Well, he's not made for the mountains, he went huffing and puffing up, and then he found in front of a small cave, a yogi was sitting, eyes closed, totally blissed out. He went there and he has been told that if you see a Indian yogi, you must prostrate. Well, he was not made for that, but he somehow managed, huffed and puffed and sat down. Hearing this commotion, the yogi opened his eyes and smiled. Immediately the bishop looked at him and said, "Can I ask you a question?" The yogi said, "By all means." The bishop asked, "What is life?" This is after 60. You should have asked this question when you were 8, at least when you're 16, 60. But what to do, better late than never. He asked. Then yogi laughed and went into raptures. Oh, life is like the fragrance of jasmine upon gentle spring breeze. The bishop looked at him and said, "What? Life is like fragrance of jasmine upon gentle spring breeze? Our teacher told us, life is like a thorn. Once it gets into you, if you sit, it hurts, if you stand, it hurts, if you lie down, it hurts. What is this fragrance of jasmine upon gentle spring breeze? So the yogi smiled and said, "Well, that's his life." So this comes from the fundamental that when a human being clearly, experientially understands that entire experience of human life is created from within, never from outside. Right now as you sit here, Do you at least see me? Even if you're not listening to me, I'm saying. Can you use your hand and show where I am? No, you're getting it all wrong. You know, I'm a mystic from South India. Now this light is falling upon me, reflecting, going through your lenses, inverted image in the retina, you know the whole story. Where do you see me right now? Within yourself. Where do you hear me right now? Within yourself. Where have you seen the entire world? Within yourself. Have you ever experienced anything outside of yourself? Right now, someone next to you, if they touch you, you think you're experiencing their hand. No. You're only experiencing the sensations in your hand. In the very nature of things, you cannot experience anything outside of yourself. When the entire experience of life is caused from within you, at least it must happen the way you want it, isn't it? The world will not happen the way you want it. At least the experience of living here within you must happen the way you want it. If your experience of life happened just the way you want it, how would you keep yourself, blissful or miserable? Please, you must tell me, I'm going to bless you. Blissful or miserable? For yourself, definitely highest level of pleasantness for yourself. What you want for your neighbor may be debatable, but you know what you want for yourself, isn't it? Now, blissfulness or pleasantness of life is not a goal by itself. It is only when you're blissful by your own nature. That means you determine the nature of your experience. No matter what is the situation, you determine the nature of your experience. Or in other words, you have no fear of suffering. Only and only when there is no fear of suffering will you walk full stride in this life. Otherwise, it's always about what will happen to me, what will happen to me. Every step is a half a step. Now, this so-called spirit of Eastern wisdom comes from those beings who walked full stride, who determined the nature of their experience.
When you were born, what's your birthday, Chief? 1st of August? Oh, close up. You were not born in one day, though you have a fixed birthday. It took 9.5 months for you to be born. Similarly, when you die, you don't die in one day. You die slowly. If somebody is medically declared dead, he still doesn't die fully. I think we've spoken about this. The 5 pranas, they start withdrawing slowly, step by step. The physical life energy, which generally is referred to as pran or prana, has 5 basic manifestations. There are 10, but that'll complicate the 5 basic manifestations. These are called samana, prana, udhana, apana and vyana. Let's say if a doctor is observing and they declare that person at a particular moment that he is dead now. In the next 21 to 24 minutes, samana will start exiting. That means samana is in charge of maintaining temperature in the body. First thing that starts happening is body starts cooling down. The traditional way of checking whether somebody is dead or alive is, they'll feel the nose. If the nose has gone cold, that's how they concluded that he's dead. They wouldn't check the eyeballs and other things, they would just check the nose. If nose has become cold, that means he's dead. So samana exits at that time. Somewhere between 48 to 64 minutes, prana exits. After that, between 6 to 12 hours, udhana exits. Till udhana exists, there are tantric processes with which you could revive the body. But once udhana exists, there is a micro chance, but that is an impractical chance, except that it is impossible to revive the body once udana has exited. The next thing is apana, somewhere between 8 to 18 hours, this exits. The vyana, which is the preservative nature of prana, will start exiting from beyond that. It can continue to exit up to 11 to 14 days if it's a normal death. It happened one day, Shankaran Pillai was rummaging through the closet, and after some time, wife came and asked, "What are you doing?" He said, "No, nothing. I'm not doing anything, nothing." Wife said, "What are you saying, nothing, nothing? I've been watching you. Last half an hour, you're reading our marriage certificate. What's the matter?" Shankaran Pillai said, "I've been looking for the expiry date." So though there may be an expiry date for one's death, one does not die in a day. It's a slow process. In fact, it's happening right now, slowly. By doing yoga, you may be putting up hurdles in the way of death, but not stoppers. Yes? Daily yoga you're doing, putting up some hurdles and slowing it down, but no stopper. So, today you know that from your old clothing, we can take your DNA. After you're gone, after 100 years later, we can clone you. Yes? Yes or no? You know? So who you are, at least the physicality of who you are, can be picked up from your clothes and we can remake you. At least someone who looks just like you. We can create the body. So you are still there all over the place. The yogis, when they die, they'll set fire to the hut in which they are living by themselves. There is a way to do it. Let me not tell you because I don't want you to set fire to the cottages here. So they always set fire to the hut in which they are living because they don't want even a single molecule of DNA to hang around and live, because in some way your physical body is still hanging around. If they can recreate your body from that, obviously it's hanging around, isn't it? So everything that I have touched, you want to burn. Everything has to be cleared up. It's because of this. This is the one main reason why people want to keep their physical possessions so minimal on the spiritual path. If you enter a sannyasi's room, you will see there'll be 3 pairs of clothes neatly folded and kept, just this thing to drink water, 1 plate to eat food, and just 1 single sheet to sleep upon, and that's it. No one extra item, because he does not want to touch too many things in the world. He wants to keep it to at most minimal, because he knows if he spreads his body all over the place, gathering it and going will be very difficult. That is why he does not form any physical relationships of any kind, because he understands if he leaves his body all over, when the time to gather comes, it's going to be extremely difficult. People who are off your body are unwilling to come with you when you want to go. They won't come. They'll all say, "I love you," but they won't come. So, when someone dies, depending upon who he is, accordingly these things must be handled. In today's world, when people have gathered enough clothing for 3 lifetimes. Enough footwear for 10 lifetimes. Burning all that would be sheer waste. And anyway, their way of existence and the way they exit is such. Invariably, they have to find root in this earth once again. No point burning all that. At least those things which are very closely, intimately involved with the body, like their underclothes and other things, must be burnt. They must be burnt. Because otherwise, that being will not go easy. He will not know, he does not have the discretion to understand whether he should be here or there. He cannot make any decision. There's no decision-making capability because there's no discretion. Once the body is gone, the discretionary mind is gone. So there is no decision, only by tendency. There are too many things here which belong to the body, it just hangs around, particularly in the first few days. So, in one's home, if there are lots of used clothes, which is a problem with the Western world again, because of the type of clothing and the structure of the society, the things are such, you may be wearing a jacket for 6 months and it may not be washed. Yes? You use it and you hang it there because it's a cold country and maybe you don't sweat so much, use it and put it there. Such a thing is not possible in India. If you use something, it has to be washed now. The nature of the clothing, the atmosphere and the social structures are such, but that is changing again there also because most people are wearing clothes made in China, not anymore made in India. So, the type of clothing they are using, naturally they use it and hang it, they don't use it and wash it. All these things were taken care of, every aspect was handled, but we are losing it in a big way. Because these clothes are repeatedly used and hung there, you can actually experiment. Well, today the dogs are there. If you bring a police dog, if you put 1,000 jackets here and ask him to point out which is Jim's jacket, he will just go and point out. Yes, not God, just a dog. So obviously, who you are is hanging there in the jacket in many ways, isn't it? That even a dog can see it. So, once it is like this, when a person has departed and his body is still hanging around in many forms, it becomes a habitation for various kinds of forces. Not only for that person's energies hanging around, for various other kinds of forces. Unoccupied body, your jacket is, in a way, which is not a good way to leave it. So, either they immediately wash it. In India, if they're expensive clothes, they will wash all the clothes. Within the first 10 days or 11 days, they'll wash all the clothes and distribute it to many places, never to one place. You don't take all your clothes and give it to one family. You make sure the jacket goes here, trousers goes there, that goes there, this goes there, so that it gets too spread out to make any significance. Significant presence is not there. Otherwise, all the things which are intimately with the body, just burn it. One of these things must be done. Either you must give it away across the 50 states so that the old man does not remain confused as to where to go, or you must just burn it up.
We appreciate you being part of this incredible journey. Keep exploring our channel for more inspiration and transformative insights.